InCap, our International Cultural Arts program, where we learn about different holidays, cultures, and professions through the most creative, iconic, and influential people in their industry. My name is Mackenzie, and in this interview, we are going to be talking with Sanah Jivani. And Sanaa created the International Day of Self-Love on February 13th, and she is also a huge advocate for embracing who you are and practicing self-love in your everyday routine. She's impacting our world every day to make it a better place and helping so many people along her journey. So let's give a warm welcome to Miss Sanaa. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you for coming on. Well, I read about your story. This is actually how I found you. So I read about your story in Lady Gaga's book. I absolutely love this book, Channel Kindness, and I loved your story. And I just really wanted to reach out to you. So thank you so much for coming on this because I can't wait to hear more about your story.
No, I'm so glad you reached out. I was so happy to get your email and happy to do this.
So let's just get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the founder and CEO of a nonprofit called the Love Your Natural Self Foundation. And, that nonprofit really did start a lot with my personal journey as early as 3 years old. I remember feeling different and looking different. I started losing bald patches or patches of hair and having little bald patches. But that journey really, really escalated in the seventh grade when I lost pretty much all of my hair overnight. So it had gone from a very mild case of alopecia to a very severe form of it, where I pretty much had no hair. And that was really hard. I think being 12 years old and in the seventh grade, you can definitely probably imagine that it just was not, an easy time to go through that. And it was really tough. I mean, I immediately started wearing a wig. I wanted to cover it up, I wanted to hide it. But all my family could afford was a wig that didn't look very real. And so everybody knew it was fake. I was bullied pretty severely, from gum in my wig to me notes in my locker, to a Facebook page created to make fun of me. And that was really, really tough. But I think within that bullying, I realized that while people were saying mean things to me, the things that I was saying to myself were so much worse. I was my own harshest critic. And so I knew that self-love is what had to happen first. That's where it had to really start. And I think that's where a really, really positive part of my journey began to kick off. I really started to practice self-love. I became the person I largely am today, through that practice and through that dedication to self-love. And yeah, I went without my wig, and I wanted to spread self-love to others. I found this beautiful gift, and I wanted to give it to others. I wanted to make sure that no one ever had to go through what I went through alone. And that's where a lot of my work began.
And you even created a whole day for people to just embrace who they are. So, can you tell us a little bit about what International Day of Self Love even is?
Absolutely. So I decided to go without my wig, like I mentioned. And I remember just the incredible feeling that that brought. So I sat in front of my laptop, and I remember just getting on Facebook and pulling off my wig and saying, hey, this is who I am, and I'm proud to show the world who I am. And I immediately shut my laptop because I was like, nothing can get me down. I don't want to read any of the comments. I don't know what they're going to say, but no matter what, like, I feel beautiful. And I remember going outside, and I always call it my Cinderella moment, like, because I felt like a princess. Like, I remember I felt like I could hear the birds chirping and the sun shining. And I felt like there was like music playing, even though there wasn't. I just felt like I was glowing. I felt so happy to be myself. So, I was like, gosh, if I could like put this feeling in a bottle and share it with other people, I wish I could. And that was part of what inspired it. But the other thing was that inspired it was when I got home and I read the comments on Facebook, because I finally was like, okay, like, think I'm ready to read them, good or bad, I can handle it. I saw that people said things like, because you went without your wig, you inspired me to get help for my mental illness. Or because you went without your wig, I feel like I can leave an abusive relationship, or I can go without makeup, or, I can let go of my insecurity. And I realized this magical thing that when you have the courage to be who you are, you inspire other people to do the same. And that was the coolest concept because I was like, if my courage could inspire this many people, what if there was a day on the calendar where everybody was brave together? Would that really create a culture change? Would that create, a shift where everybody could really show up as themselves and people felt inspired by each other to be their best selves? So that's where the idea was born. I chose February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, because you have to love and accept yourself before you can do the same for others. And I decided I wanted to start an international movement. I wanted to start a day where people could really show up as their full selves.
What do you think is the definition of self love? Because in this time and age, I feel like self love has evolved over the years, but I feel like self love is still something that people think is like selfish or something, and so they don't love themselves because they don't want to be selfish. And also with all of the media and everything, I feel like it's really hard to find self love in every day. So, what do you think is the definition of self love?
Yeah, it's funny because I think that when you're practicing true self-love, when you are so at peace with yourself and you have so much love within yourself, it's honestly the least selfish thing you can do because it's like your heart is so full that it naturally overflows to others and you have, love to give to others. And so I think that's definitely a common myth. You're so right. Like, I think people don't really see the importance of self love, but just know that self love means investing in yourself. It means making sure that you are at 100% so that you have capacity to give to others. It's doing everything that you need to do to make sure that you're okay. Because if there's no self, then there's no love to give even others. Like if you are not okay, then it's going to be so much harder to love others. It's going to be so much harder to spread good in the world. So self-love is just that fundamental action of making sure that you're okay, doing what you need to make sure that you're okay, doing what you need to make sure that you feel whole and confident and like you can show up as 100% yourself and your best self and feel really happy doing so. So yeah, I mean, I think it's whatever that looks like for you. It can look different for every person. And so I think figuring out whether that's doing something fun like a face mask or taking a bath or doing something more serious like, hey, I've been needing to go to this doctor's appointment, it's really important for me to take care of my health. Or like organizing your room, that could be self-love. It could just be taking a break if you work really hard and work all the time. I know sometimes that's self-love for me. I work so much, and so like saying, hey, today I'm not going to answer any emails and I'm going to take a day off, that could also be self-love. So I think it just depends on where you're at in your life and what you need, but it's just fulfilling your own basic needs for yourself.
How do you think that the movement of self love has evolved over the years? Because I know when I was little, self love really wasn't a thing that people talked about. And I feel like over the past couple of years, it has kind of like opened up. Like a lot of celebrities are talking about it, a lot of people are talking about it in different products and stores and in different ways. So, how do you think that it's evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, I am thrilled to see that people are talking about it more because I think it's really, really important. But yeah, I think it's really evolved over the years because people have been able to really see how important it is. I think people are beginning to realize the importance of mental health, which I think is fundamentally really related to self love. They're starting to see how if your mental health's not okay, it affects every area of your life. For students, it affects their education. For adults, it affects like, going to work every day and showing up. Like if you are not okay as who you are, there's it touches every single area of your life. And so I think people are starting to realize that. And that's why this movement is gathering a lot of momentum. People are starting to have more research on that. They're starting to realize that mental health is health. There used to be a lot of stigma around mental health. Like I think people were like they didn't want to talk about mental illness. They didn't want to talk about depression or suicide or self-harm, but people are willing to now look that in the face and say that like, hey, this is important and like we need to talk about it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your foundation and what you do in your foundation, how it impacts your community?
Yeah, so the Love Your Natural Self Foundation um, has K through 12 programming that focuses on different social and emotional learning objectives. So that looks like identity, mental health, courage and vulnerability, anti-bullying. And so once the schools go through those different curriculum modules, they end with the celebration of the International Day of Self-Love. And so it's really a whole curriculum that schools can opt into. They get lessons about every single topic. We really talk and dive into these things such as identity and mental health. And that really, really, really can have a really positive impact because we're talking about things that often aren't taught in schools. People don't really talk about identity. They don't talk about mental health. They don't talk about courage and vulnerability and like storytelling. So I think it's just providing an avenue for important conversations to happen that might not be happening otherwise. Um, and then, of course, this celebration of the International Day of Self Love, I think it's so cool. People, host it at their schools and they talk about how it's one of the most impactful days on campus that they've ever seen. People are being themselves, people are showing up without makeup, people are really accepting of one another. Like the campus culture almost shifts to become more positive. So I think that by working in schools and changing the culture in schools, we're changing the world. And I, it's also grown beyond that. We do stuff with corporations, we do stuff with larger organizations. We do stuff. I do speaking engagements with all sorts of groups and stuff. So, yeah, it's really amazing to see how it's grown.
So I've heard about some of the stories regarding International Day of Self-Love in schools, which were so cute and inspirational. I loved them. But what is your favorite story regarding International Day of Self-Love, whether that's something a school did or a company or something like that?
Yeah, so my favorite story actually comes from an individual and how they celebrated International Day of Self-Love. It's also a social media movement. People will post using hashtag Day of Self-Love or Self-Love Day. And I remember this was a couple years back, probably one of my second or third International Days of Self Love ever. We're up to 10 now. We're at the 10-year anniversary. So that's crazy. But I remember I was having a really bad day. And one thing that I can do to cheer myself up when I'm having a bad day is to go look at the hashtag, because looking at the hashtag reminds me what an impact I've had. And I remember I was scrolling through the hashtag and I found a post that I had missed. And it was by a 12-year-old girl who had lost all of her hair overnight. But because she found my story, she decided to go without her wig right away instead of buying a wig. And it was so parallel. I lost my hair at 12, I lost it overnight. And I remembered Googling to see if I could find a story like mine, and I couldn't. And it was so sad and so heartbreaking for me. So to know that she was able to find that story and I was able to be that person I needed growing up for her, that was just amazing. And it was just one of those moments where everything came full circle. I thought, like, my whole dream with this was to be the person I needed growing up. And I got to be that person for at least one person. And I know that for sure. And that meant the world.
That's amazing. Um, what are some things that we can celebrate? What are some things that we can do to celebrate International Day of Self Love, either on the day or just practice in our everyday lives?
Yeah. So I always encourage people to reach out to your campus, to your community, if you go to a church, if you're in an organization of any sort, like see if any group that you're a part of wants to celebrate. We love it when groups celebrate. It can, again, really, really change the culture of your campus and your community and make it closer, even your workplace. So, I would just urge you to see if you're able to host a celebration, because I think that's not only something you can do for yourself, but it spreads the positivity to others and it really creates an overall more positive culture. But I think for yourself, celebrating the International Day of Self-Love honestly just looks like making a plan and setting goals. What is something that you have been struggling with that you've wanted to take a big step towards? And that's the best question you can ask yourself. the International Day of Self-Love is a great outlet to work on those things that you might put off in day-to-day life, that you might not feel ready for. That can be like, again, a big scary doctor's appointment that you have to make. That could be like, oh, you've been meaning to get help for your mental illness and talk to your family and friends. Like, think about what have you been putting off that if you did for yourself, you would just feel free, and challenge yourself to do that. If you can't think of anything like that, celebrate in a fun way, buy yourself dinner, take the day off, go get your nails done, like take a break, journal, get outside and take a walk. So there's plenty of ways to celebrate, and I really do think it's a day for everyone.
You go to different schools, seminars, and galas as a motivational or public speaker. How do people reach out to you, and how do you book these jobs to bring more awareness to self love?
Yeah, so a lot of that, honestly, people will just hear similar to how you did from the book. Like, they'll just hear about my story and they'll reach out. I get probably at least an email a week, I would say, in some capacity to continue to do this work. And I think that just goes to show that there's a need. People want to hear about this, organizations want to hear about this. And so I pretty much try to say yes to every opportunity I get. That's one thing that I've done to really, really, really build up kind of my public speaking skills and really spread this message and make an impact. I realize that some corporations can donate a lot of money and pay a lot, and some people are in grassroots movements, and they are just happy to have your time and like maybe can't compensate. And I am happy to work with anyone at any level, and that's always been my motto, just because like I was that small organization that needed that support. And so I'm really happy to talk to anyone. And so I think that's one way that I've actually really grown, is that I just say yes to every opportunity that I get and I just make it happen. um Other than that, I really, if I see any like opportunities to apply to speak at conferences, I always try to apply. I try to find at least 1 hour per week where I can go and seek out some opportunities or message people. There's different like speakers bureaus and hubs that you can like post videos on and stories, so that when people are searching for speakers, they find you. So I'm also on a couple of those websites. But yeah, no, overall, I'm just happy to do the work. Whenever someone reaches out, I say yes, and it's as simple as that.
Well, you're such a natural speaker. It feels like it's like so easy to just like watch you and listen. um, so when you're not working with your foundation, advocating for International Day of Self Love, or speaking, what do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies, or what do you do on your free time, if you have any?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So one of my biggest hobbies that's come fairly recently in my life, well, I guess it's been a while now, but in 2018, my New Year's resolution was to switch over to fully thrifted clothing. I love to shop, and I was a college student, and like, I am running a nonprofit full time. I don't have time to work. And so that was not working with my budget. And so at first I did it really just to save money. I was like, if I switched over to thrifted clothing, I could shop as much as I wanted to and not break the bank. And so I really did it just for kind of financial and personal reasons. Then I read about fast fashion and how it helps the environment. And I also just fell in love. I thought it was so much fun to go thrift shopping. I thought it was fun to have like a rotating closet. Like, I could always get new things and never worry about costs. I thought it was fun to know that every piece of clothing that I wore had like a history and someone wore it before me. And I really fell in love with that. So that's one thing that I do for fun. Um, Other stuff is just I love to travel. I'm actually in the midst of launching a travel blog, which is really, really exciting. Um, I'm really blessed that my work allows me to travel. My nonprofit and giving speeches and assemblies inherently allows me to travel. And I've made sure, more recently, especially as I've, you know, focused on my own self-care and grown up, I've made sure to make every single trip have at least one day where I can, like, I pay for the extra night of the hotel. I like make it happen where I can have one day to just like explore and go see the city. And so I've gotten to see so many cities in that way. I like to go stay at really cute, unique Airbnbs. I stayed at one that was called like the Witch's Cottage, and it was totally like hocus pocus witch themed. And so that was in Kentucky. That was my most recent one. I've stayed at one of those that looks like a giant globe. Um, I stayed at one called The Nest and it looked like a bird's nest. So like I also like to go find like really weird, quirky Airbnbs. And yeah, that is like another one of my hobbies. And other than that, I have lots of loved ones. I'm really grateful to just have amazing friends and families. I have nieces and nephews. I love being an aunt. I love spoiling them and, flying into town with souvenirs. And so I just try to focus as much time as I can with loved ones as well.
I did want to ask, when you are thrifting with your clothing, do you have like a specific decade that you love, like 1950s, or do you just find pieces that you can just put together that just speak to you?
Yeah, so I would say decade doesn't come to mind, but definitely loud colors and florals. I am a big I own too much of like pretty much the same variety of like this top, just like a color with the floral, like my vibe. Like I love skirts and I love really loud colors. I think it's really cool that I love really loud colors because I know that when I was in just kind of the pits of like my self-hate and I was in a really dark place, like I struggled with wearing bright colors. I would wear like all gray just to kind of like, blend in. But now I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna wear a light blue and a bright red and like an orange, and like that's gonna be great. And so yeah, I think it's my fashion really is a way for also for me to show myself love.
For those who are curious, how do you even go about starting an international or national day?
That's a great question. It's funny because I think people often look at my story and they think like, wow, she must have had some crazy elaborate plan to make this all happen. And the honest reality is that I didn't. I really didn't. I just went through what I went through and I wanted to make a difference on my campus. And so I literally just I bought 2 packs of sticky notes. I stayed at my campus until midnight. I got approval from the principal, and I hosted the first day of self love on my campus. When that was successful, I had a friend on my campus whose mom was a teacher. And so she told her mom about it, and her mom wanted me to do a second campus. After I had done 2 campuses in my area, the local news station heard about what we were doing and they wanted to do a story on it. And so then I had, 5 other campuses reach out after seeing it on the news. Um, at some point I had so many campuses locally, and I thought to myself, there must be other campuses around the US who want to do this. And so I literally like Googled like, list of schools in the United States. I clicked on every school and I pulled their name of their school counselor. And I just cold emailed like 2,000 school counselors. And I was like, hey, here's my story. Here's a little bit, about what I've done. Here's photos from past campuses. And, I was not as organized back then. My materials were not as pretty as they were now, did not have a website. So only a couple people answered, but that really got me started out of state. Once I did a couple out of state schools, I like knew more about how to do that and how to go about that. So, it didn't come from this crazy elaborate plan or lots of knowledge. It just came from like really just believing in my idea and championing it and just pushing the most I could to make it happen.
Where you said that you love to travel and you love to, in every city that you go, just take a day to just visit that city. Where has been your favorite place to travel? I'm a big traveler, so I love hearing about places, and I feel like that's the only way I can travel right now is like hearing other people's stories. So,
I love that. No, that's such a hard one because I love everywhere for different reasons so much. I really like the beach. So I went to Santa Barbara, California, which was just beautiful. I felt like I was like in like a movie the whole time. Everything was so picturesque. I really liked I've been to Seattle, and Portland, and those cities were really, really interesting. Like I feel like they were like very different than any city I had ever been to. They had a little bit of everything, like a lot of art, a lot of like really unique food halls and different things. But I will say I am biased and I moved to one of my favorite cities of all time. So I live in Washington, D.C. now. And I chose that very strategically because I love this city. I really do. I think it's, again, it feels smaller than other big cities, but it's still a big city. Like it's still huge big city vibes, but like in mileage and like just in feel, it's small. So you don't feel like you're getting lost in the city, but at the same time, you get to live in like this major hub for change. So, yeah, I know I cheated and gave you like five cities, but that's because it's hard to pick.
That's fine. I love Washington. I did a concert up there, and my mom and I stayed, and we stayed on the beachfront part of Washington, and it was beautiful, and it was a very interesting experience because there were evergreens, but then
Oh,
it like
wow.
looked like a lake, but it was really the ocean, and there were like sand dollars coming in, and it was a very unique experience.
That sounds literally amazing. I love that.
And my one of my best friends are actually from Washington D.C., so it's nice to know that you're from there. Is there like a place that you haven't traveled to before that you would love to travel to?
Yeah, I would love to do more international travel in general. Like I haven't done the whole Europe thing yet where I've like, I haven't gotten to like Italy or Paris or any of those places. So I would love to go do that. I was supposed to right before COVID happened and then my trip got canceled because of COVID. I was working with a school in Kenya, so I was going to actually go travel there and that was going to be really incredible. So I'd love to like when things, calm down and I have the time to again, I would love to try to reconnect with that school and make that happen. Yeah, I mean, if I think about where I want to travel, there's literally so much I haven't done. Internationally, I've pretty much only been to Pakistan because my family's from there. I did my study abroad in South Africa, so that was really, really, really cool. That's actually probably actually my favorite place that I've ever been in South Africa. I like was thinking only nationally, and then I'm like, wow, I forgot about that. And then London. So those are the only three places I've been internationally. And so I really want to expand that. And there's like so many cool countries. Everywhere has such a unique culture, and I would love to go.
I would love to go to London. That just seems like such a fun place. So you are a very inspirational person, and I feel like behind every inspirational person is another inspirational figure. So who is someone that inspires you?
Yeah, my mom really, really inspires me. She has been such a support through my story. Um, my mom has a really tough story of her own. When she was 15 years old, was forced to drop out of school. In Pakistan, a lot of young girls don't get to finish their education. Like, I think we're really privileged in that way in the United States, where it's kind of just a given, but it's not there. And she loved learning and she loved school, but she was forced to drop out and very soon placed into an arranged marriage, which is also really common there. And so that was really, really tough. Um, that marriage became abusive eventually and that was something that my mom and I really struggled with growing up and my siblings as well. And I think like she really inspires me for a couple reasons. A, because she, no matter what was going on or what we were going through, she centered her daughters getting an education. Like she really, really, really pushed us and reminded us that we could do anything. And I never looked at my mom as like a victim or helpless. Like she's always been the strongest person I know. And, I've always thought like, I'm just going to make her proud and I'm going to do this. And then I think her other trait that really inspires me is just like kindness and goodness and positivity. She just like, even though her life and like the world was harsh on her, she remains just the most upbeat and positive person I know. And I think I just see that, and I just think that like if I could even take an ounce of that kindness and goodness and like try to give it to other people, that would mean the world. So, she's my hero for sure, and she's really inspired me.
That's wonderful. My mom is definitely my role model as well. She went through kind of the same thing, but at a older age.
Mm.
So yeah.
Moms are
Um,
amazing.
they really are. They don't get enough credit for what they do. Um, what is the coolest experience that you've ever had?
Yeah, I when I was reading this question, I had to think about that one for a little bit. And I remembered one particular experience that I will never forget, that was pretty cool. But um, I do a lot of work with Disney. I do a lot of work with their Disney Dreamers Academy, which is just like young people from around the nation who have big dreams. And they're invited to Disney World for a couple days to like shadow different folks and get mentors. And as a part of my involvement in that program, I got to be a part of the parade in Disney, that they do through Disney World. And that was really, really special because they like dressed me up like a princess. Like I got a makeover. So it was just fun because like I just felt so gorgeous. Like they picked out just the most beautiful dress for me, the most beautiful flower crown, like did my makeup, like all the works. Like I felt so beautiful. And then I got to go be in this parade and like, do this really special thing. But the most special part of that whole experience was afterwards. I was getting off the float and I was walking back to our next session. And this little girl just runs up to me, with her mom, and she just pulls off her wig. She must be like 6 or 7 years old. She just pulls off her wig and she said, "I just didn't know that there was a princess that looked like me." And that was the most, oh my gosh, heartwarming and cool and special thing I ever could have done. Because I just think that, like, yeah, representation really matters. I mean, it means the world for young kids to like see someone who looks like themselves. And so I was glad to like get to take a picture with her because she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I want a picture with the Disney princess." And it was just so sweet and so special. So like, A, it was just a lot of fun and like I felt really good and I was really happy, but B, it was also really meaningful. And so I think combined that makes like the coolest experience I've had.
I love the work that Disney is doing right now to show diversity and everything. I mean, I was very fortunate when I was little to have a Disney princess that looked like me, and that experience was just amazing. And now that there's like Luca, and I have a lot of friends who don't have like parts of their arm because they were born without it, or different things. And so that's just been so amazing to see. And in Canto, my best friend growing up, she didn't have a princess that looked like her, and now she
Right.
does. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my childhood best friend is on this TV right now.
I love that. Yes. No, it's so amazing. It's so special. And it's really, princesses are like, brave and bold and courageous, and they often like single-handedly save the day. So I think like seeing yourself in that as a little girl means the world. Like, you're like, okay, like I can be this brave, strong, amazing woman. So I love that.
Yes, it's amazing. So, what are your future plans or goals, either personally or with your foundation? I'm just curious to see what you're gonna do next.
Yeah. So I would say personally, I think the pandemic was a huge turning point in my personal life. I think for the first time, like it forced me to like pause in a long time because I was like, oh my gosh, like moving, 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 like traveling, giving a speech every week. Like there were some weeks where I was a full-time grad student, and there were some weeks where I had like 3 flights a week. Like I was tired and I didn't realize how I was tired because I just kept going. But then the pandemic happened and everything stopped. And I was forced to sit with myself and think like, oh gosh, I'm exhausted. And I've been putting my life into this work, but I don't know if I've been like practicing it myself. And so that really started this whole journey of self-care for myself. And so at least personally, all I know is that I never want to go back to a point where I'm not also focusing on myself because I think it's really easy to get lost in the work. And so I think I've done a really great job finding balance now. And so I'm really happy and I'm happier than I've ever been. And so I just want to keep getting happier. And that's that goal. I think professionally, eventually the dream would be to move over to full-time public speaking if I can get enough funding and folks who want to hear the story. I'm really working on developing a model, like potentially finding an agent. Like it's really crazy. So that would be really cool to move into. And then yeah, the third professional bucket is that I love writing. I've always written poetry and like processed through poetry. So I would love to like write a book someday. But yeah, just gonna take that slow as it comes, and for now just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and yeah, I'm super grateful to be where I am.
If you had one piece of advice that you could give to another person, what would it be?
I just want people to understand that the biggest gift that you have to offer the world is not something that you do or something that you create or something that you make. It's just who you are. And just remember that. Like the biggest gift that you have to offer the world is you. And I think that I would just remind people that, because I think that like I said, for a long time, my own identity got conflated with my work. Like, if people used to ask me, hey, like, what's your favorite thing about yourself? I used to be like, oh, my nonprofit. Because it just felt like so core to me. But I think like remembering that like you are the best gift that you could possibly offer the world. Just being yourself, showing up boldly as yourself, loving yourself, that is the kindest thing that you can both do for yourself and other people.
If people want to follow you, hear more about your story or your foundation, how would they do so?
Yeah, so they can always go to loveyournaturalself.org. That will help them find my website, get in contact with me if there's ever anything they need, learn more about our work and our curriculum. And then people are also welcome to follow me at my personal social media. On Instagram, that's just my first name and my first initial. So it's SANAHJ. And then on Twitter, it's my whole name. It's at Sanah Jivani. So SANAHJIVANI.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was amazing hearing your story. I love what you are doing and how you are impacting the world. And I really hope that we can talk again soon because you are so easy to talk to. Yeah, you seem just so friendly and bubbly, and I wish you all the best on your modeling career and opening up your public speaking and foundation and everything. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber. It was such a great time talking to you. This was genuinely so much fun, and you are also so wonderful and easy to talk to.
Thank you. That means a lot. Well, have a wonderful day, and hopefully, I'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to InCap. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to Sanah's wonderful story and how she is impacting our world one story at a time. If you would like to donate or learn more about the Performers with Purpose Foundation, please visit www.performerswithpurposefoundation.com or visit Facebook or Instagram to learn more. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye!